Reverend Dawson.
The Reverend Dawson. We'll call the order of the meeting of the Utilities Committee for Monday, June 30th. If everyone please stand for the invocation be led by Mr. Ken Dawson, followed by the pledge.
Let us pray. Father, again, we thank you for the opportunities that we face, for the wisdom that you give us, oh God, in solving those issues and opportunities. We thank you, oh God, for giving us wisdom, which you give to every man freely. And as we conduct the people's business, oh God, we thank you, oh God, for the decisions that will benefit all in Ascension Parish. We thank you for all that serve and the commitment they give, oh God, for the service of this parish. We thank you, oh God, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. Carla. Councilman Travis Turner is absent, and Councilman Randy Clue, I just called. He's stuck at work tonight, so those two members are absent. No chairs additions, public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak on any item on the agenda can sign in with the secretary, and they'll be given 3 minutes when that item comes up on the agenda. Item number 5, approval of the minutes from the April 29th, 2014 meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Joseph.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sadlerly. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. Moving on to item number 6, an update on Highway 73 and 42 projects. Mr. Bob Warner.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Highway 73, they've finally worked out the utility conflicts with a couple power poles and items out there that have had them on hold for a while, and they're back working on getting the pipes put in and repairing some of the ones that didn't pass air tests and things like that. But they've also just opened up a couple of the bypass lanes to make sure that those were going to be stabilized before they remove the center pavement and start putting the turn lane in. And things are moving forward on that. On Highway 42, the lift stations are continuing to be installed. This past week they have started placing some sewer pipe out of the, I believe it was lift station 2 to the west, and things they're starting to get the rhythm on doing that, so everything's moving forward with that one as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the unique process the way they're doing. I've got a couple calls on the 42 project with the lift stations, and they're seeing them like, what's the structure above ground? And I forgot about it at first when I talked to the first person, but this I think it was after I had talked to the parish president, and reminded me that they were building and then going in and digging them out and sinking it and adding on until they get them all the way in the ground. So
it almost looked like they were building some kind of a tram ski.
Yeah, yeah, it was got up pretty high up there too, so it was pretty interesting the way they're doing that. Okay, any questions on that, Mr. Sadler?
Yeah, Bob, I don't have any questions about the report per se, because I realize it's a utility drainage meeting, but I did get several calls this morning, and I just hung up in Chambers with Moose Pierce. I've been tracking him during the day. Folks that live in subdivisions, Prairie Oaks and so forth, off of 73 are experiencing problem as of this weekend. Apparently they put some petitions up the middle of the road, so that there's no what they call crossovers, I guess, where if you're going on a certain side of 73 and you want to go into a subdivision that's on one side and not the other, you've got to go all the way down to 621 and take a U-E and come back. Concerns range anywhere from, and I don't know how legitimate this is, but again, shoot the message, not the messenger. If there were a fire, what are we going to do? How are the fire trucks going to get in there, so forth. I have already called the state reps. I know it's a state highway, so I don't need to be educated that way anymore. Both Eddie Lambert and Jody Amity, they said they were going to talk to the state DOTD folks to see if they can get this remedied. Unfortunately, one of the contractual workers, I think from Barber Brothers, that has that, made a comment to one of the residents that it's only going to be for about 4 days, maybe a week. And that's, of course, to them not satisfactory, so I would rather that have not been said. But be that as it may, anything that DPW can do on y'all's end to talk to some of the transportation guys, whatever, to hasten this placement of these crossovers, whatever, and be sure it's, of course, a safe situation. These people, of course, are very raw. This has been going on a long time. It's been pushed back, oh, geez, since I've been serving, which is only, what, 2.5 years, maybe half a dozen times. That might be a little bit of exaggeration, but at least 3 or 4 times. One of my constituents complained this morning, he understands it's going to be March 2015 before completion. They're really raw. They want this done, and, you know, it is what it is. Now, I went out there, by the way, and took a look, and it's sunshiny today. In fact, I've got an air conditioning man repairing my unit right now because my air conditioner won't even keep up, so it's very hot. I didn't see anybody out there working. And these voters are telling me that over the weekend they would see 4 or 5 people with hard hats and they're just standing there. Again, I know this is not the parish. I'm not blaming anybody, the administration, our council, our hard workers in DPW, it's a state highway, et cetera. But if we can, you know, yell at these guys, excuse me, let me rephrase that. If we can talk to them with any degree of sanity and, you know, squeaky wheel getting the grease, I greatly appreciate it. They're pretty upset.
I'll relay your concerns and their comments on along.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
We met with the Highway Department this morning on this issue, and they assured us it would be 4 days, as Mr. Sadley said, and hopefully at that point, that section will be opened and the crossovers will be opened again, and it'll be, but until then, I don't know if there's anything that we can do to expedite it. We've tried, we've talked to them and did everything that we can do, but it's just the nature of the project at this point. So, and they're at that stage, and I'm sure they're going to be doing this intermittently along the highway as they go along. So, again, and it was actually scheduled to be finished last December. It is pushed back till the first quarter of next year. So that was an update that we got today. That's basically where we're at, and it is a state project, and I refer them to the OTD, and I refer them to specifically Joey Turo, who's in charge of this area. So in the future, I think that maybe that's the best route. We can do all we can do, and we can holler and scream and do what we need to do, but I don't know if it can be done any quicker.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 7, cross-connection ordinance revision for review, Mr. Brian Martinez.
Yes, thank you. In your package, you have a summary as well as a draft ordinance that I prepared using the DHH example from their website that we need to submit for their review. It was originally part of a compliance order that was received in January of this year that we asked for an extension for to process the ordinance through. It basically codifies what we do now, requiring backflow prevention on users that have a potential to cross-contaminate our water supply. It was done specifically for HD1, and I'd like to present it as a draft to the board to bring back again next month to see if you have any comments, as well as submit it to DHH as a review to be in compliance with that administrative order. And that's the final item for that administrative order.
Okay. Are you planning on waiting until after next month before you submit it to DHH? Or are you going to go ahead and kind of run a parallel path with that?
I'd prefer to run it parallel path.
Okay.
To stay in compliance.
I think that's a good idea.
The ordinance itself is pretty much exactly as the DHH sample was, tweaking some words here or there. You can get more elaborate, but at this time, I'm just basically codifying what we're doing now, which is that requiring the backflow prevention monitoring.
Okay. Mr. Dawson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is something, again, that's required by DHH that we have to do under that compliance order. A lot of the compliance issues that we had to deal with were even before that, you know, Parish took over as being administrator over ACUD #1. So Brian has done a good job of getting a lot of these things completed. This is one thing that we have to do to kind of finalize all the issues with that particular compliance order.
Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, and Brian, I know from the past with ACUD, this was an issue with the Department of Health, was they were leaving it and base it on an option to the user at the time, but now they're really enforce it to say it's mandated now, and that's a plus, because that was our problem. We were going to put something on the customer, and then we went to DHS to say, hey, look, we need to do this, and DHS said, well, no, it's an option. So now they're really making it mandated. Yeah, we definitely needed this here.
Right.
You need a motion? This was just for review right now.
Yeah, just for review right now.
Yeah.
Mr. Sadler?
Yeah, that's what OJ was asking, was sort of part of my question. So we're just going to review this. It's like 12 pages, and then you'll be asking for a recommendation on the resolution I see at the back of the packet to maybe the full council next time?
No, the resolution's a separate item, right?
Okay, that's going to be separate. Oh, then my other question would be the actual appendix that you're proposing, and I apologize for my ignorance up front. I don't see no strike-throughs. I don't see any,
This is a new ordinance.
so it's totally new.
Yes, sir.
This language does not exist whatsoever for the parish.
That's correct.
Okay, good. So we do need another month to read it. I
Yes,
got
sir.
it. Thank you.
Any-
Put it back on next month's agenda?
Yes, ma'am. Let's make sure this is on next month's agenda. And at that time, if there's any revisions from DHH, hopefully we'll have that we'll have to do.
Yeah, and if you guys get to read it over the next week or so, and you want to call me and give me comments, I can tweak it as well. And we have throughout the next couple of months, if we want to tweak it and move it forward, that's kind of the plan.
Right. Okay.
So,
I have one more.
Mr. Joseph?
The ACUD1 committee, advisory board, have this too, and they have looked at it, or they put their input in it too?
yes, the last two meetings, I've brought it to the ACUD 1 board. They have reviewed it, and they're recommending bringing it, go ahead and move it forward to the utility committee.
Mr. President?
This is going to be amending to our existing ordinance, I think, and adding a new appendage to it, so.
And I just question is, because we have AC number 2, is this here going to be also applied to them too? Because I know we have them contracted out. I don't know if that going to affect the contractor. I don't know if they follow this in the Hewitttville Dairy area when they hook up a new customer. I don't know.
I'll definitely double check on that. I'm pretty sure they do under our contract, but I'll definitely follow up with that and make sure this applies to all.
And I would imagine that because now it's going to be an ordinance, it'll be applicable
Yes, sir.
across, and it'll be I imagine the contract states that any of this kind of stuff would automatically be, or hopefully we need to review that and make sure that it is that way.
Yes, sir, great point.
Okay.
That's it.
Mr. Sadler?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And one more follow-up, Brian. So since this is all new language, is this modeled after something, or did I miss that, or is this all your brainchild?
No, it's definitely modeled off the DHH example ordinance. It's basically almost word for word, except for tweaking a few sections and making it make more sense to me, and make it apply to Ascension Parish and not the state. So pretty much all the meat and potatoes of it is all directly from DHH.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. No further discussion. We'll have that on the next month's agenda as well. And be sending that to on from there if that's what the body desires. Moving on to item number 8, an update, SRF update, GSA contract and project timeline. Mr. Bob Warner.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I believe we've reported in the past what we're doing is trying to condense the time frame as much as possible, and in doing that, we've taken a parallel path approach to getting our administrative and financial application prepared, the bond issues ready, and go through the bond commission to get that into DHH and DEQ for their review, while at the same time we're working on the technical aspect of the project through the GSA contracts to get those moving along to where we can try to condense the schedule as much as possible. We've got a Gantt chart that we've pulled together for the technical side, and what we're trying to do now, we met this morning, or this afternoon, I think it was, with the bond attorneys and GSA and doing the technical side, and we're going to compile all that, and when we get that pulled together for you, we'll get everybody a copy for your review. But right now we've began to do an overview of the system with GSA, looking at treatment plant sites and component portions of the main part down 73 and 42.
And I'm not sure, I think since the last meeting, the contract's been signed, correct? So.
Yes.
I don't think that's made it out in the public yet, but I know last time we were pushing to do that, but just kind of as awareness, so the contract with GSA has been signed and
Yes.
they're working. Okay. Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, just real quick, the actual finance portion of this, the parallel path for the SRF funding. There is a financial portion which deals with the, going with the bond and all of that, and then there's the technical portion. The meeting today was to make sure we're all on the same timeline. Finance portion is moving forward. I actually got a call from DEQ, asking some questions because we are moving forward. I'd rather get a call saying that, hey, what's going on? You guys seem like you're moving, instead of a call saying, hey, what's happening? We're not hearing anything. So the meeting today was to make sure that we're all on the same timeline, whereas Mr. Horner just said the actual Gantt chart with the timeline is going to fold in the actual finance portion as well. So when there, and we'll send that to you, so when you need to look at where everything is, I mean, it's going to have the technical portion along with the financial portion and how everything is tracking as far as the timeline, so everyone will be able to see. Another thing we agreed to do is that when we have an updated meeting, that would be a meeting, of course, for administration for President Martinez, as well as anyone on the utility committee would like to look at it, especially the chairman, you, Mr. Johnson, but also to have that meeting with DEQ. Because we want to make sure that they are directly in the timeline, that they understand everything that we're doing. If they have any input that will improve our ability to collapse the timeline, then they will be able to do so, during those meetings.
Fantastic. Anything else? All right, moving on to item 9, an update on ACUD1, Mr. Brian Martinez.
Yes, sir. A couple of things I just wanted to point out as an update was we were able to re-scope out the CWEF grant to be able to obtain some equipment and software to where we can start really being a water system to get hardware and softwares, modeling, hydraulic modeling software, billing, reading, as well as some flow meters and automatic flushers without any kind of match. So our grants department was able to get that authorized through CWEF. So we're moving forward with ordering those things and getting in a position where we can better monitor the entire water system. We had been, since we took over ACUD1, we've also been trying to put in a couple hundred electronic meters. We've been diligently working, trying to get them all caught up. We're down to the last 25. There's a few left, I think, in Lemonville area, and then a few out in the Modest area. To basically, once we get all those done, then all the meters will be updated to electronic. So we're just about finished with that. The CCR, which is the Consumer Confidence Reports that are done every year, went out last week. I don't know if you guys ever get any calls on them, but it's basically a report that DHH does and says, here's any of the violations you've had, and if you have to report anything, the water's deemed safe, and there's nothing really to report on it at this point. But I just want to make sure you guys were aware of it, that went out. And then on the St. James side, in the Lemonville area, the chlorine residual has been low, and we had gotten an extension from DHH on the emergency rule through July to be able to be below the 0.5, which is required by the emergency rule. We've been trying to work with St. James to do something about the high residual or the low residual. Originally, when the emergency rule came out, they had a chlorine residual that was high. Everything was fine all the way through our system. Over the past last few weeks, it's dropped drastically. We've been in contact with them. They tell us they're working on the issue. They're going to install another booster pump, but it was working fine. It's not now. We're monitoring that on a daily basis right now, but just want to make sure you guys were aware of that. We still have a chlorine residual, but it's just low. It's not. It's below the 0.5 that's required by the emergency rule.
So it's still above what was there prior to the emergency rule, but
Correct.
since the emergency rule was put into effect because of the amoeba last year or year before last, whatever it was, so
That's correct.
so we're not just want people to understand, we're not
Yeah,
dangerously
correct.
low. We're still above what
Correct,
used to be the
correct.
minimum. We're just not there because of the emergency rule
Correct.
anymore. Okay. Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, Brian, I know St. James is building a new hotel, and he was just talking about the residual and the pressure and everything, and they putting a new booster pump in. Is that, should be in time for that, the finish of that construction of that new hotel they putting there? Because there's gonna be a lot more
Yeah,
water usage.
St. James tells us they're waiting for it to come in right now, and they're gonna install it immediately as soon as it comes in, is what they're telling us. And we keep following up with them almost every day to find out if it's come in and when's it gonna come in, and make sure it gets installed as soon as we can. And I'll keep you guys abreast as that changes.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm just going, because I just recall when we originally did all this here, they didn't have the 100 houses complex there, and they did not have the RV park that right now, I think they got about 100 plus there too. So that's a whole lot more water they're pumping in that area that I don't think we was,
Well, if they don't correct it over the next month, we're gonna have to take action to do something. So it's in their contract to provide us water that meets the standard, so, you know, if they're saying they're gonna meet it, it's gonna be fine, they're working on it. But if they don't, we're gonna have to take some sort of action over the next 30 to 45 days.
okay, all right.
Mr. Dawson?
The reason why is because even though we are a purchaser of water and not a producer, we still responsible for the residuals in our parish. So if the residuals are not low enough, DHH will work with us for a while, but still, if it doesn't get up to the standard that they require, they expect us to take action. And as Brian said, it was working fine at first. I think maybe it was kind of associated with what you were saying, Mr. Joseph, that it could be because there's extra flow in those other trailers, and therefore, it's not getting enough residual, and they have to do some things to increase that. So hopefully they'll have that resolved in the very near future.
So basically what we're talking about is some kind of chlorine injection system
Yeah,
to
have
get
to
our
be chlorine
residuals up
injected.
on our end?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
could be a
if-
possibility.
Yeah, if it comes to that, but they are in violation currently with DHH, so they're having to do something.
So imagine from a twofold in on our end, that would be something that any costs we incur to try to get our system up, even though we are responsible for it, contractually, they're supposed to provide us with that. There may be some kind of remedy from that,
Very possible.
possibly. I have to talk to him, okay. Any other discussion? All right, thank you, Brian, for that. Moving on to item 11, the resolution to Public Service Commission against rate increase for local wastewater treatment companies. I'll read the resolution and we can have discussion on it from there. Whereas in order to protect the health and safety of the residents, Ascension Parish has initiated an aggressive wastewater treatment program to provide safe and cost-effective sewer treatment. And whereas the parish is responsible for ensuring residents are provided safe and healthy environments, and whereas the ultimate goal of Ascension Parish government is to maintain chemical, physical, and biological integrity of the rivers and streams and to restore local waterways so that our citizens will not be subjected to limited usage of our waterways due to physical and chemical impairment caused by wastewater discharge. And whereas many of the private wastewater treatment providers in the parish have not properly maintained, operated the systems over the years, which result in current noncompliance and insanitary conditions that directly affect our waterways. And whereas the abrupt response of installing improvements to these systems may provide additional justification towards elevated values of the system if negotiations and sales are to occur. Now therefore, be it duly resolved by the Ascension Parish Council, the Parish of Ascension, that the Ascension Parish Council hereby recommends that the Public Service Commission strongly consider rejecting any request for an increase in rates by any private wastewater treatment providers operating in the Parish of Ascension. This resolution duly adopted by the Ascension Parish Council, so forth and so on, if this was to move forward to the council. Basically, there's, my understanding, two of the local companies that are put in requests through the Public Service Commission for rate increases. And at this particular time, in our status of trying to get a system off the ground and knowing that the customer base is what is the biggest strive or biggest need is going to be an issue. This would drive, in my opinion, drive up the cost to us to provide the system as it goes forward to our citizens. And so therefore, I ask for support of this resolution.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Joseph.
I'm going to second that motion, but I do have a question.
Okay, second by Mr. Sally. Discussion.
Yeah, I just want to be sure, Benny, that you said there are private wastewater treatment providers that have requests currently in front of the PSC to increase their rates.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have any angst with that, since we're like making a resolution after the fact, or what's your opinion of that?
My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that basically they made a request to the Public Service Commission, but there has been no hearing on it. And so,
And so, excuse me for interrupting you, know?
Sure.
And so even if we make this recommendation to the full council and the council codifies the same, it's just really still up to the Public Service Commission if they decide to give these folks a rate increase. All we're doing is saying we'd appreciate some cooperation in this matter, since we're getting in the wastewater treatment business.
yeah, I mean, any kind of resolution that we've passed, right, whether it be a council or whatever, is just our opinion, basically giving our written opinion of what we would like to see happen to whatever body who has the authority to do whatever. And so in this case, the Public Service Commission has the authority to grant this raise, and that we as a body request that they do not.
And even if they got a rate increase from the PSC and did some things, what's the real chance that they would actually come into compliance? From my understanding, you said two companies. Obviously, it's not the one that's in bankruptcy, but the other two, I suppose.
Yeah, MoDad and Ascension Wastewater, the two that I understand, that have the request before the Public Service Commission, or have made a request towards them.
Thank you.
Mr. Joseph?
I just because you know they have put a request in it, what was the percentage, or do we know the percentage of increase they were looking at?
I don't have the exact figures, but I think like a regular customer is like 49, going up to $49 a month, or close to that.
Okay, so they're going up to a little bit higher than what we've been projecting, what we've been always saying, $45. Now they going up to 49, so it's no matter what, sewage is going up. And if we don't try to put a program in here to keep the cost down, the private sector will constantly have the upper hand on the public.
And you know, my concern with it is that, you know, the system that we are trying to work towards instituting here in the parish, obviously the customers are going to be one of the things that's at the biggest need, or whatever is going to supply the system and spread the cost out over larger numbers of people to keep the cost down on a monthly basis. And so therefore, that's what the issue is going to be, is the more that they drive their cost up, the more it's going to cost us to initially get into the system or build our system out, if you will, buy those customers from them. So that's my concern with it, and prevent us or make it harder for us to do what needs to be done and clean up the waterways by going into a system that's not putting waste streams into local waterways. Our system is planning on going into the Mississippi. All of their treatment systems go into ditches or canals within the parish, and so our system will get it out. And no matter what they do, no matter how clean they get it, theirs will not.
In this resolution, Benny, I'm just clear that would give us where the commission will call us and ask us if we want to testify or have any complaints or any objection to it, correct? We can go voice our opinion as a council.
Yeah,
That's the
anybody
governing
can
body.
go do that when they have the public hearings. For this, as I understand it, it's basically just like any other governmental body meeting. Now, whether or not they actually contact us to go up there, I don't know that they would do that. But I mean, if somebody wanted to, know when the meeting is, and if we can find out when they're going to have those hearings, we can definitely let everyone know about that and put it out there. But basically, it's on your own whether or not you want to go up there or not. The resolution coming from the council and the utilities committee would be basically our input in writing to that commission as far as what our wishes are.
Okay. Good.
Mr. Sadler?
Yeah, not a question, but more of a comment. So they're out of compliance. That means that the federal watchdog agency, I guess the DEQ, is charging with that. This is the Public Service Commission, so the people understand. the body decides where they can have more money, but I assume, Mr. Chairman, that they would make a case that with these, the fifth whereas we have in our resolution, they would be installing improvements which are undefined, not necessarily even to get them in compliance, but just to make things better. So let's say things aren't backing up into your bathtub and some of the other things I read about in the press. Is that sort of a correct way of thinking it? Because my concern here is that if they, continue along their way and there's nobody really putting pressure on them to discontinue, I've often wondered why we continue to give them rate increases. When I say we, the agencies that do that.
I'm not sure what their business plan is as far as this is concerned. I haven't seen that documentation as, what they're putting forth as justification for the rate increase. I saw something, got a notification that they were actually making the application towards that. And I thought it prudent on our part to take some kind of action. I'm sure that's what their ultimate goal would be to improve their services as far as whether it's improving the quality of their system as far as not having backups or fewer backups and those type of things, or whether it's mostly towards cleaning the system or treating the system more to what the requirements of DEQ are. I would assume that's probably what they're going after, is something to improve their systems to get more towards compliance or in compliance on some of the systems that they can.
And so, since these improvements that they're installing that's in the whereas are undefined, is it true also that we don't even know, since we don't know what they are, that there'd be something we'd be even interested in keeping if we were to eventually negotiate sales with them? Is that a distinct possibility as well? I mean, they may be fixing the things that aren't totally broke that we would be interested in as we put in a legitimate wastewater treatment plant somewhere and put our effluent into the Mississippi and so forth and so on.
Yeah, I mean, in my humble opinion, there's a lot of unknowns at this point in time as to how we're going to track as far as acquisition or working negotiations, whether we go in to acquire these systems or customers from these private entities, or whether we get them to tie into our system. Exactly how that's going to work that's still some of the stuff that's up in the air negotiation wise. But in my opinion, I think you're right. I don't know that you go out there and you buy these systems, are they going to be in compliance, and is it going to be worth our money to have to go up there and put more upgrades into them to get them in compliance prior to the overall system being put into effect? More than likely, it depends on where these systems are in the parish and where our lines are going. Obviously, we're not going to put pipe overnight everywhere, but we're going to have some of these systems that we take over to get the customer base that are going to have to stay on the systems that they're on, and we're going to have to make upgrades to them to get them in compliance or get them acceptable to DEQ and as well as the customers until the main system is connected to that subdivision or area that it covers.
All right, thank you.
I don't know, Tommy, if y'all want to add to that, or if y'all comments or anything y'all want to make?
Basically, I think what they're asking for the rate increase to improve the system and to get some of these systems in compliance. Like I said, that's going to be up to the Public Service Commission. I'm not sure if they would get what they're asking for. They may get an increase, but it wouldn't be what they're asking for generally. I can't speak for them. But, it depends on how long it would be before we would take these systems in, or if they would get into our system. And, if we're looking at 10, 15 years, I mean, we certainly would want to make sure that these systems are working properly. I understand what Mr. Sadler's saying. But, like I said, not knowing all the facts and details, maybe if you want to get a copy of this and see what they're asking for, I mean, that may be something to look at. It's public record at this point. So.
Right. All right, any other discussion?
No.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. And this, Ms. Carl, if you would, see that this gets on the council agenda for next month. And also, if you don't mind, get a copy to the rest of the council as well. And if, yeah, when is the, I know we moved that meeting, I think, to the 9th. Yeah.
July
So July 9th, we'll get it on that meeting. And I guess if we could, Tommy, if we could get that information as far as, from the PSC, as far as what kind of documentation they got to back this up. Right. That would be appreciated. That way we got I got all of our information together. All right, that's item 11. Moving on to item number 12.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion
Second.
adjourned, second. We are adjourned.